Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your Rant Line, Rave Line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall. Can't explain what I'm feeling right now, guys. I can't believe it. Let's open up that Rave Line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 559, coming to you on Wednesday, September 18th. We're going to look ahead to USC's first ever Big Ten conference game. The Trojans, the Wolverines, USC, Michigan, locking horns in the Big House in Ann Arbor, Saturday, 12:30 p.m. on the Columbia Broadcast Service?
Yes.
CBS? Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson on the call, but it's me, Michael Castillo, and my co-host, Alicia D'Artola, on the call for Rant Troy Radio, our preview. As always, you can call us on Rant Troy Radio Rant Line, 818-643-7227, Second Woodsboro Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined with my co-host here at the Rant Troy Studio in Los Angeles, Alicia D'Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello! We're back for another preview. We're also doing more content on the old YouTubes. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, maybe open a new tab or just set an alarm on your phone, something. When this is done, go watch our new video that we put up called USC Wins If. It's a new thing we're doing. Tell the people.
Yeah, for each game, we're going to hop on for a separate, shorter video previewing the game. We're just going to look at the factors that if USC does them, that will count for a USC win. Basically, when we're doing our Fallout episode or our CarCast, the things that we're going to be talking on that, because USC did a good job on them, if they won, that's what we're trying to sort of predict going into the game. So it's a good time, trying to be informative in a little shorter span, because we know not everyone has the hour and 30-minute attention span that our podcast listeners have. So
are you kidding? Our podcast listeners are so connected. Everyone is so passionate.
Our podcast listeners have an hour and 30-minute attention span. Not everyone on YouTube has that.
They want 4-hour episodes, right? You guys want 4-hour episodes? Yeah, I think so. Cam in the chat says, I missed the at the end of the previous intro. See, people are connected. People are hooked. We know the top Trojan fan who's always in the chat, Hokey P. He's been listening for like 10 years, and a lot of people have. So you guys are awesome. And if we grow new people watching via YouTube, that's even better, because that means more people. Speaking of which, you know what a lot of people are doing now, Alicia?
What are they doing now, Michael?
They're joining Underdog Fantasy. Over 1 million people join Underdog Fantasy. You can go over to underdogfantasy.com and download the app as well. Alicia, I love it because it's all about stat projections, right? Is 800 yards higher or lower in a game? Is Miller Moss going to throw 800 yards? Probably over for sure, right? Probably the higher number.
I would sign up for that today.
Yeah, higher
personally, but you never know.
Probably higher for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, whatever these stat projections are, go look at them, go play them. It's a fun time to put together some fantasy. Turns out it's super easy because you put everything together and you can join Underdog Fantasy and download the app today. Use the promo code Reign of Troy when you sign up. Where's my thing? I've lost the thing. Oh no.
Do I need to go find it?
No, I got it. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing whether you think your favorite players will go higher or lower in their stat projections. And making picks on underdogs is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog. Simple to use, mobile app, or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up using promo code Reign of Troy, all one word, Reign of Troy. Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Reign of Troy to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates, including California. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned about your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8 Hope NY or text Hope NY to 467-369. There's a lot of words there, and you can read more in the episode description here in your YouTube page or your
podcast catcher.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. But Alicia, I think it's time. We just get straight into it. The Trojans and the Wolverines. How do you feel about us not doing the dramatic intros?
I mean, everyone misses the dramatic intros.
Do they? No one's mentioned it.
Oh, people have mentioned it though.
Have they?
Yeah.
I don't think people have. I don't think people
have mentioned it. The dramatic intros were a way to get hyped. But I mean, we were scrambling to get this episode together in the first place, so
a little bit
definitely wasn't going to happen for this one.
Yeah. But we've got a lot of prep on USC and Michigan. So let's get into it. The number 11 Trojans going on the road for the first ever Big Ten conference game at number 18, Michigan. The Wolverines 2-1. This is going to be their conference opener for the season as well, but it's not their first Big Ten matchup. It's just their first Big Ten matchup against the Trojans ever. The Trojans and the Wolverines have not played in the regular season since the 50s, but of course, several big-time Rose Bowl clashes, a 2007 Rose Bowl, a 2004 Rose Bowl in which the Trojans won a national title. Bo Schembechler's last game against the Trojans at the Rose Bowl. Bunch of history there, but USC and Michigan rekindle their history on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. CBS Pacific time on CBS with Brad Nessler. Alicia, the Wolverines 12th at SP+, 6th at FEI, 19th in Sagarin, and I think that sort of all over the board there, because you look at the AP poll, they're 18th. A lot of those metrics like SP Plus and FEI still have preseason input, and it's understandable, right? Like, it's understandable that the metrics would, but the eye test certainly doesn't factor in last year's perception all the way. And that's why Michigan is 18th after a loss to Texas last week, in which they got pretty soundly beaten by the Longhorns, who look pretty damn good. They're now number 1 in the AP poll. Michigan struggled at times against Fresno State and Arkansas State. Here they are going up against a USC team in which we know that the hype is out of control. SC fans all fully bought in to the Trojans having a great defense.
What a difference a defensive coordinator makes.
Yeah, Danton Lynn putting together a solid defense. Alicia, what are your general thoughts about the matchup on Saturday?
So I think this matchup is very much a matchup of perception at this point, and a lot less with like stats or metrics that we can point to. There certainly are things that we're going to try and to dig down into from a statistical numbers perspective. But when it comes down to it, the reason that USC is all of the sudden a 6-point favorite or 5-point favorite, wherever you're looking in this game, is because USC has passed the eye test and Michigan has not. And it's just really that simple. In every game USC has played so far, and it's only 2, USC has passed the eye test. And in every game that Michigan has played so far, and it's only 3, they have not passed the eye test at all. Certainly not on offense. And that's really the question is, people feel a lot more confident in teams that have quarterbacks that they feel like they can rely on. And, you know, it's all about defense wins championships. Yes, absolutely. That is proven over and over and over again. But the perception of a team is heavily weighted by how steady is your quarterback situation. And USC came into the season, both of these teams came into the season with quarterback situations somewhat up in the air, uncertain, and USC's has been fully answered. I think Miller Moss has impressed a ton of people with his poise and his accuracy and the throws that he's been able to make. And on the other side of things, Michigan, they have not passed that quarterback test. Davis Warren was a surprise starter, didn't look good. His decision making was poor, put the ball in a lot of really dangerous spots, and just that the offense didn't move with him. They tried mixing in Alex Orji as a running change of pace. That really didn't work, and now they're going to try going full on with Alex Orji. And Alex Orji is the guy we all thought Michigan would tap as their next starter unless they picked up a transfer.
Yeah.
But with him, it's very much he has some dynamic mobility, but there's some big questions about his arm and how consistent his arm can be. And when you just put those two up against each other, I think a lot of people are looking at it, taking away the defenses, because I'm not going to even begin to claim that USC's defense is on Michigan's level, because that's just not proven yet. I think that would be wonderful, and I hope that turns out to be the case. But USC's defense has answered so many questions itself. You can sort of put the defenses to the side and say both of these defenses, relative to the offense they're gonna face, are probably going to be pretty good. And the matchup comes down to those quarterbacks. And I don't know that you could find a single person on the planet who would say they would rather have Alex Orji than Miller Moss at this point. So that's the framing of the game for me. I think it really does come down to a lot of skepticism about Michigan's offense, and the area of skepticism around USC, the quarterback and the defense, have given you zero reasons to be skeptical through the first two games.
Yeah, you talk about defense wins championships. I think that phrase needs reworking because Iowa hasn't won a national championship since 1960. You think about all the great defensive teams, the very defensive teams.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech, back 20 years ago, they had a bunch of great defenses, right? Never won a national championship. They got to a national championship game with Michael Vick, but they did it with Michael Vick, right? Like you've got to have the ability to be there on offense. And last year we saw that, Michigan's defense was incredible last year. Number 4 in the country in yards per play allowed, but their offense was also the best it was ever at in the Jim Harbaugh era.
They had a first-round quarterback.
Yeah. And so, yes, defense wins championships, but you got to be able to have a very competent offense to go along with it, or else you're not truly going to be a national championship contender team, which I think is the big interesting thing about Michigan this year is if they don't have an offense that is able to compete with, Texas and Penn State and Ohio State and perhaps SC and these teams that are on the upper echelon and on their schedule, or they play Oregon this year, then they might not be, a threat to win the Big Ten, to win, to go into the playoff and all that stuff. You've got to be able to put stuff together on offense. And I think that there's, in a way, that makes Michigan sort of dangerous here because they quite literally can't get worse on offense. So far this season, 18th in the Big Ten in turnovers, dead last, 18th, dead last in interceptions, dead last in turnover margin, dead last in passing offense, 17th in the Big Ten in total offense, 17th in yards per pass attempt, 15th in passer rating, 15th in yards per play, 106th in the nation, with only 16% of their plays gaining 7+ yards. They're the only Big Ten team to not have a single 40-yard gain, and the only Big Ten team with fewer 10-yard gains, the only two Big Ten teams with fewer 10-yard games, Purdue and UCLA. Alicia, Purdue and UCLA have only played 2 games.
Yeah, and both of them are not having a great time.
No, but they've played 2 games. Michigan has played 3.
Yeah.
So, the reason I say that they're potentially dangerous there is the sense that, Michigan's offense can sort of only get better, and we talked about it. You talked about Alex Orji, and he has the threat to run. The run game from Michigan is pretty good. Kellen Mullins, 36 carries, 270 yards, averaging 7.5 yards a pop, 2 touchdowns. And then we haven't even got to Donovan Edwards. He's literally on the cover of College Football 25. He was someone who, I thought was going to come into the season as sort of like a Heisman candidate. We haven't sort of seen that yet. He's still kind of been the number 2 guy in this offense, like he was behind Blake Corum last year and the year before. Also 36 carries, but only $150, 4.17 yards per carry and a touchdown. More than dangerous to rip off a big gain. The offense sound in that sense in terms of the running game. The passing offense, Alex Orji's only thrown 6 pass attempts all season. He only threw 1 collegiate pass before this season. And I'm just going to go on a hunch. If he's going to throw the ball, Alicia, it's going to be to Colston Loveland. 19 catches, 187 yards and a touchdown. The next top receiver for Michigan, Samaj Morgan, wide receiver, who has 9 catches, who is the only Michigan receiver with more than 5 catches through 3 games.
Well, and that's the thing is, it's not entirely clear if Colston Loveland is going to be available for this game. He got injured in the game against Arkansas State, and his status is unknown at this point. Now, I'm going to assume that he will play, or he will at least try to play.
Yeah.
I don't think you can assume that he's. I don't think you can assume that he's not going to play. But like, if he doesn't play,
it's an uphill battle for Michigan.
It is an uphill battle, unless like the only way this isn't an uphill battle, and I don't want to like jinx it or anything like that, but like the only way is if the first 2 weeks of this USC defense was a complete mirage.
Yeah.
That gets the rug pulled out from under us going into the big house. Because if the USC defense that we saw over the first 2 weeks tackles the way they've been tackling, keeps things in front of them the way that they've been keeping things in front of them, defends against the run the way that they've defended against the run, even rushes the passer the way that they've rushed the passer, which they're not getting a lot of production on that front, but we've agreed that they've been disrupting opposing quarterbacks. If we see that same well-drilled defense, it is hard to see where Michigan finds their room to do some damage in this game offensively. Obviously, they will try to run the ball. Obviously, that is their biggest threat, and obviously, that is the area that I think that in our little mini preview that we put up on YouTube, one of our keys was to
sack the boss.
Yeah, I think USC is going to go out there and basically beg Michigan to throw the ball. And if Michigan wants to try and run into heavy boxes and find success that way, it will be because of something that USC's defenders were doing wrong.
Yeah.
It will be because of missed tackles or because of missed assignments. And we're all a little bit traumatized. I still am sitting here, I just finished watching Love is Blind UK, and I won't give any spoilers to anyone who hasn't watched it yet. It's very entertaining. But like, all of these people in the show are always talking about how like, oh, my previous relationship, like, I've been cheated on in every previous relationship, or like I have abandonment issues because of this previous relationship and all this kind of stuff. And they are always talking about like they're getting ready to go to the altar, and they're like, this guy is perfect, he's amazing, but also I don't know because of these things in my past relationship. That's where I am with the USC defense. Like, I'm head over heels. We fell in love in the pods, sight unseen. I'm head over heels. They are everything that I want them to be. And yet I'm standing, getting ready to walk down the aisle, and there's just this voice in my head that's like, but what if they're just like the other ones? What if this is all a lie? What if this is all put an act?
Pessimistic Alicia is out in full force.
So, it's hard not to like, it's hard to feel confident going into this matchup from the defensive perspective. But then you look at what Michigan is bringing to the table, and I mean, even their rushing attack, like against Texas, they only had 80 yards on 23 carries. Now, I mean, if USC forces them into a situation where they're attempting under 30 carries, then I think that's a very good sign for USC, because that means they were forced to throw, and I just don't think they're going to win the game that way.
Kenny in the chat says biggest fear is if they control the clock and make it into a rock fight. Yeah, there's a world in which Michigan does want a crockpot SC, right? Like slow everything down, play solid defense, and I think that is we talked about USC wins if. Well, Michigan wins if they're able to control the clock, go on long drives. We talk about how Michigan's, offense is, not good enough. Yet you look at the drive chart against Arkansas State, they didn't have a single drive that was like a 3 and out until the fourth quarter. So like they were able to drive against Arkansas State, like slowly. And yeah, Davis Warren threw 3 interceptions. So sometimes those drives didn't necessarily, end how you wanted them to if you're a Michigan fan.
I mean,
but
isn't that the case for what USC did against LSU effectively? Is bend but don't
break. We're in
break,
a lot of 3 and outs.
And then don't let them force them into situations where they're kicking field goals or they're going for it on 4th down and you get those stops. Like it's like the ends justify the means there, because if they control the clock, it doesn't matter if they're not getting into the end zone.
Right.
And they have struggled to get into the end zone this year.
Yeah, they've struggled to get in the end zone. 28-3, they were up on Arkansas State, and then Arkansas State sort of roared back and made it closer than expected in that game. But week 1 against Fresno State, that was like a 1-possession game for a lot of it. It was really close. Really, really close. Let's turn the page, talk about Michigan's defense. We talked about how defense wins championships and all that kind of stuff. Deshaun Barham is in, linebacker from Maryland. He might be the guy to keep an eye on defensively from the Mike spots. 14 tackles, leads the team in tackles that way. On the defensive line, it's all about Mason Graham. 9 tackles, only one half tackle for loss this season. Hasn't been as impactful as maybe you'd like if you're a Michigan fan, but how often do we talk about defensive tackles? They can have impacts without necessarily producing things. On the edge, look for Josiah Stewart, 3.5 tackles for loss and a couple of sacks so far this season. And then the main man on the backside, Will Johnson, defensive back, 10 tackles, a pick, a tackle for loss, 2 pass breakups. Last year, he was very, very good in the secondary. They're a defense that, Texas just dropped, what was it? So like almost 60 points on UTSA or whatever. Like we know that Texas is a team that if Quinn Ewers is healthy, they can score 70 on, a tomato can. Michigan's not a tomato can. Michigan held Texas to, 31 points, made them work for it. And I think that they're more than able to make SC work for it in that sense, because SC's offense, we've talked about this sort of before so far this year, the offense is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with SC's offense, but it's also, this is not a 70-point USC offense, at least not yet in the Miller Moss era. Miller Moss has been very solid, but we haven't necessarily seen SC go out there and be flawless on offense. They left a lot of points on the board against Utah State, even though they won that game 48-0.
Yeah, and even against LSU, there were moments where they were having a hard time in that game. And now that we've seen more of LSU's defense, like LSU's defense is they have not fixed their tackling problem the way the USC has fixed their tackling problem.
Sure.
So like you have to be sort of realistic on that front about what USC has or hasn't faced defensively yet. And I think it's easy. I think it's accurate and very simple to say that that Michigan's defense is the best defense that USC has faced this season, and it's comparable to the defense that Notre Dame trotted out there last year in South Bend. And we all saw what happened then. And we all saw what happened then for a very, very good reason. USC had a really good quarterback and, good running backs and capable receivers at times. But the offensive line got overwhelmed by a very good defensive front.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the offense fell apart because of it. And Caleb Williams started to press and started to throw interceptions and all of those things that happened in that disaster of a game. Well, Michigan is an even more hostile environment than Notre Dame is. And you don't think so? You don't think the Big House is
No, I don't think the Big House is scary.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think the Big House and Notre Dame are very similar. I mean, it's literally the same design. They stole the design from each other. But neither one of those things is necessarily loud. I think it is intimidating from a historical perspective and, this is a big stage perspective. Absolutely. But look at what Miller Moss was able to do and the offense was able to do in Vegas. And everyone who's been to that game in Vegas has said how ridiculously loud that game was.
Yes,
I think that game and environment would have been at least, if not way more so than the Big House will be on Saturday.
The difference, and the reason I brought up the Big House is not because I think the Big House is an impossible place to play.
Yeah.
But that the Michigan defense, which has a ton of NFL level talent on it, is going to have that crowd behind them.
Sure.
Trying to disrupt what USC is going to try to do. And if there's one big question mark that I still have about this USC team, above all else, is how does this offensive line hold up? I'm very confident in Jonah Monheim. I think he's a stellar offensive lineman who has done a stellar job at center, proving his ultimate versatility. But the rest of the line, I still have questions about. And, I saw Emmanuel Pregnon graded out very well against Utah State. And, Elijah Page and Mason Murphy have had their moments. And, Alani Noah has definitely has potential. But can the five of them collectively stand up to guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Josiah Stewart, who is going to be coming off the edge and I was just pulling up Pro Football Focus, and is far and away the highest rated defender for Michigan this year, just across the board in everything that he does. So, and then you have Will Johnson, who will be looking to take advantage of any disruption to Miller Moss, any loss of composure from Miller Moss, any forced throws from Miller Moss to try and generate some turnovers. That's where the fine margins come in and where the crowd can have an impact, regardless of whether or not you're the Big House or you're Autzen or Death Valley or wherever it is that you are. There's an interplay there, and I think that there are questions that I have about USC's offense that Michigan can absolutely exploit defensively.
Yeah.
While also acknowledging full on that, Lincoln Riley's offense is pretty damn good. And, HR Pickin' stuff in the chat pointed out Wink Martindale is the defensive coordinator for Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And, he comes,
no relation to the Wink Martindale, I don't think.
Are you making, I don't know this joke.
Do you not know Wink Martindale?
I know Wink Martindale, the coach.
You don't know the Wink Martindale?
Is this a Seinfeld reference?
No, it's not. It's a game show reference. Wink Martindale was he hosted like a bunch of game shows. Hold on. I'm looking this up. He's a American disc jockey. He best known for hosting Gambit, Tic-Tac-Toe, High Rollers, and Debt. Yeah, a bunch of old. Did you not watch game shows when you were a child?
I watched game shows, but I'm not like you, and I don't remember the names of the broadcaster people. Either way, Wink Martindale comes from the same Ravens tree that Danton Lynn comes from, which may be a good thing for USC because Danton Lynn is going to be in there and be a resource for Lincoln Riley trying to prepare a game plan to go up against this Michigan defense, and maybe that will be something that helps USC be prepared for what Martindale is going to try and throw at them. But this is a capable defensive coordinator going against a very capable offensive coordinator. It's going to be a chess match, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see, actually. The thing is that Michigan, Texas did get the better of Michigan in that game. Michigan's defense as well. The Texas offense did what they wanted to do against Texas's defense and showed that they could get got. So that should give USC hope if they stand up on the offensive line. As ordinary Adonis 87 in the chat says about the Notre Dame comparison, to be fair, Caleb Williams was under a lot of duress against Notre Dame, but he also tried to go for the home run and miss checkdowns. I don't think Miller has the attributes to try that. That's another factor that I think is going to be very interesting to see in this game, because that is one thing that Miller Moss does seem to do better than Caleb Williams. He doesn't have the extraordinary arm talent of Caleb Williams, so he doesn't try to make the extraordinary arm talent kind of throws. The extraordinary throws that he makes are the ones that are just all about pinpoint accuracy, but are not the ones that like rock your socks off in terms of arm strength and being able to throw it 50 yards down the field off your back foot and that kind of stuff that Caleb Williams could and did get away with all the time. Miller Moss is probably more likely to take what the defense gives him, check down, be more conservative, and a more conservative game plan where there aren't turnovers in a game where you expect your defense to be getting stops on the other side. You know, offensively, you can pick your battles and accept that maybe you're not going to go out there and score 35, 40 points, but realistically, there is a universe where USC scores 25 points and comes away feeling extremely good about how the offense performed because they played relatively mistake-free.
Yeah, I think you talk about Miller's skill set and toolbox versus Caleb Williams. I'm not going to sit here and say that SC is better off with Miller Moss over Caleb Williams. That's a ridiculous argument.
It's apples and oranges.
Yes, sure. But I think there's nuance here. Obviously, you want somebody with the ability of Caleb Williams to improvise and make something happen. At the same point, I do think that you have a point that like maybe being conservative, and not that Miller Moss is too conservative. Look at that throwing the wheel route that he threw to Woody Marks last week.
He's got every day I get on Twitter and a new like NFL scout is dropping a highlight from Miller Moss going, my God, why aren't people talking about this throw? And why aren't people talking about this throw?
Yeah.
So it's not like we don't want to damn Miller Moss with faint praise when we compare. It's not fair to Miller Moss that we have to keep comparing him to Caleb Williams, somebody whose like arm talent is literally off the charts. It is absurd what Caleb Williams can do. And Miller Moss is just like a very exceptional quarterback who doesn't do superhuman things with his arm. And
he's not Nolan Ryan. He doesn't need to be Nolan Ryan.
We're not calling him, like he's not a noodle arm or anything like that. He's not, I was going to name some names and I'm just not going to do that anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I think it could serve SC well. We know that he hasn't thrown an interception. He nearly threw an interception against LSU that was batted at the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. There were multiple passes batted at the line of scrimmage against LSU. That's probably going to be a point of emphasis for Michigan to get Mason Graham's big mid up there and try to bat things down. And then he did throw an interception against Utah State that was null and void because of a penalty. But that's fine. That's a perfect time to throw a pick. Are you kidding me? But yeah, I think if he's able to, we didn't talk about this in the USC wins if thing, but if SC has a game in which they don't turn the ball over, I think, and this is very obvious, like football 101, but like the chances of them winning this game, I think like massively are improved, right? Like it's just that simple. I think that SC is clean. SC is clean on offense. Given how the Michigan offense is probably not going to force SC into a shootout, then as long as you're clean on offense, you're going to put yourself in position to drive down the field and get points yourself.
One of the ways Michigan wins this game is if they get special teams or defensive touchdowns, and those have to be given to them by USC's offense. Yeah. So that is definitely a factor. Look at
that Notre Dame game.
I mean, exactly. The Notre Dame game was USC gifted them opportunity after opportunity because of the offense making those mistakes. Michigan so far this year is -4 in turnover margin. They were -3 against Texas, -2 against Arkansas State. A lot of those have been obviously interceptions from quarterbacks throwing interceptions, but
Yeah.
Davis Warren won't be out there throwing those interceptions, but Alex Orji needs to prove that he's not also in danger of throwing those interceptions. So,
yeah, I think when you look at it too, I think that it's going to come down to being able to sort of out Michigan at their own game, in the sense of like, you want SC to play a strong defensive game, and you want them to be efficient on offense. SC doesn't have to score 50 points in this game. It's not about that. Honestly, this is probably a game where the first to 20 wins. Like, I think it's going to be a low scoring game, and we're going to get to predictions in a couple minutes, but I think it sort of trends that way. And I think it does help that Michigan's defense, not necessarily great on third down, skewed by the Texas game. Texas went 10 of 16 on third downs.
But that's another one, Michigan was much better on third downs against Fresno State and Arkansas State, and still got into a little bit of trouble there. But the Texas game is a good roadmap to Texas's offense stayed on the field. Michigan couldn't get them off the field, and USC will want to be in the same tier of offense as Texas is, in terms of being able to execute the plays, put themselves in good third down positions, and be able to go out there and keep Michigan's defense on the field forever. Because our friend Kenny in the chat is worried about Michigan playing ball control. Well, USC, if they can do that too, like Michigan won't be able to score quickly enough, theoretically, to make up for USC playing ball control either. So the turnabout is fair play.
Yeah, but before we get to over under and do our predictions and stuff, HR picking stuff in the chat says 24-20 SC, and I just want to make a quick point here before we go to over under. The fact that you can say 24-20 about a USC game in 2023, and it sound A, realistic, but also B, a scoreline that would favor SC, shows you how much this team has progressed since last season. Because, like, look at all the talking points after the LSU game. SC won a game 27-20, and people were, drooling over the fact that SC won a game 27-20. It didn't have to be 47-40, right? Like, and this is going to be a game that's going to be a slugfest in that sense. Don't expect SC to, be in a shootout here. Also, don't expect SC to necessarily blow them out or get blown out. This is just going to be a hard-fought, close game. Let's get up to over under, everyone's favorite game, I assume. I think.
So you're going over. I'm feeling bold. Give me that over.
I'll go under. I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take.
I'm going to do an under here.
All right, Alicia, let's do over under. Let's start with the standings going into it. We're both 6-6. We were 3-3 in each of the first 2 weeks. Alicia, what's your first over under? What do you got?
I'm going 150.5 rushing yards for Michigan. I struggled with whether to put this line, because I don't want to be too. I didn't want to be too biased one way or the other about what this means for anybody. But USC held Utah State to 87 rushing yards. They held LSU to 113 rushing yards. But both of those teams, LSU had 25 rushes and Utah State had 23. These weren't teams that were going out trying to run the ball down USC's throat. Michigan had 148 rushing yards against Fresno State. They had 80 against Texas and 301 against Arkansas State. And the Arkansas State one is interesting because I think it was at that point that it was a little bit more clear to me that Michigan understood that the quarterback was not going to work and that they needed to really just, pound the football. And I think they'll come into this USC game probably trying to ease Alex Orji in and leaning as much as possible on their running attack and then picking their spots in the pass. So I expect far more than 25 rushing attempts in this game, which could add up to, 150, somewhere between 150 and 200 yards rushing. That still equates to a USC win.
Yeah.
If USC does well enough against the pass as well. So sort of a a weird in-betweener kind of number.
Yeah. Chat, what should the USC defense do?
Sack the boss.
Thank you. Yeah. Michigan's going to want to run. In part because they sort of have to. I think that the way the offense is built, talked about Loveland being sort of questionable. He's the number one target in the pass game. Alex Orji not known for throwing a ton and being a downfield passer. He's going to have to prove that he is. And because of that, they're going to want to run the ball a lot. And I think that you made the case for me at the end here. This is going to be an easy over, I think. Not because Michigan's going to necessarily run all over SC, but I think they have to run. Like, that's going to be their means of moving the football. And just by sort of maybe being one-dimensional in that sense, they're going to gain a lot of running yards because they're going to run the ball a lot. So, yeah, I think 150 should be no problem for Michigan in this game. I think the key is going to be, what is the yards per carry there? Like, if you hold Michigan to 3 yards per carry and they run the ball 50 times, then, that's going to look really, really, really good for what SC is going to want to do on defense, right? So I think it's going to be the context around what the total of yards ends up being. Also, we know Donovan Edwards can break a big one. He's broken a big one against Ohio State the last couple years. Did it against he's doing the championship game against Washington. They're always game to potentially break a big run, even though SC hasn't given one of those up this year yet. That's always possible too, and those are cumulative yards. Let's go to my first over-under, which is over-under 4.5 Michigan tackles for loss. How many tackles for loss can the Trojans avoid, essentially? 4.5 is the line. Michigan's only averaging 4.33 this year, hence the line being at 4.5. They only had 4 against Texas. They only had 3 against Arkansas State. The Trojans allowed 7 against LSU in week 1, but Utah State only held SC behind the line twice in the 48-0 shutout win 2 weeks ago at the Coliseum. Last year, Michigan averaged 4.9 tackles for loss in Big Ten play alone. So 4.5 is the line.
I mean, in case anybody didn't pick up on my feelings, my anxieties about USC's offensive line during the preview section, I'm going over on this. I wish I trusted USC's offensive line to not have the occasional lapse and let Michigan through. But I don't. I don't trust USC's tackles yet. I don't trust USC's guard yet. I like the bunch. I think the 5 can be very effective for USC if they continue to develop together. But I'm realistic. I just think there will be moments in this game where Michigan's talent up front wins a battle or two and drops a running back or gets a sack. I would hope that it's under 7. But again, USC had 7 against LSU and still won that game. So
yeah,
I think USC can survive a few tackles for loss. It's about how efficient they are after those kinds of plays that matters.
Yeah, Michigan's going to get their plays on their impactful plays, havoc plays on defense. It's just a matter of limiting those things for sure. Let's go to your next over-under. What do you got?
We're going 38.5. That's third down rate for Michigan. This is their conversion rate. So against Fresno State, they converted 36% of their third downs. Against Texas, it was way down at 25%. And at Arkansas State, they rebounded up to 75%. USC held LSU to 38% conversions on third down and then really didn't let Utah State do much of anything on third down, holding them to 18%. So we've got 2 teams here that are sort of in a very similar range about what the defense expects to hold them to and what the offense sort of is aiming for to get over. Will Michigan put up better third down conversions than LSU did is essentially what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm going to shimmy a little here. I think the story on third downs is going to be what happens on first and second down for the Trojans, because if Michigan is in a bunch of 3rd and longs where they
Mhm.
have to throw the football, then this is going to be a thing where I think it's way under. If this is going to be a bunch of 3rd and shorts because Michigan has been able to be on schedule, get 4 yards on the first 2 plays and have a bunch of 3rd and 2s and be able to comfortably run the ball on 3rd down, obviously that changes tremendously. All told, I'm looking at this. I'm going to go under probably just slightly. 38.5 over under, taking the under on Michigan 3rd down rates. Will be a fascinating point of emphasis, absolutely, going forward. Let's go to my next over under, which is Zachariah Branch offensive touches. 4.5 is the line. He had 4 catches against LSU and 0 runs. He had 4 catches against Utah State and 0 runs. Last year, he had 5 touches on 5 occasions, but never had more than 6. 6 was the most he had against UCLA. It's kind of surprising, like looking at the numbers. It is and it isn't, because there's part of me that was like, wait a minute. All the plays that I think of with Zachariah Branch last year were on special teams. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, yeah, he barely touched the ball at all on offense. And we haven't really seen him have a big impact yet on offense so far this year. So the line 4.5, Zachariah Branch offensive touches.
Yeah, I'm going over on this. I think that if ever Lincoln Riley was going to reach into his bag and find more opportunities to get Zachariah Branch the ball in his hands in creative ways, this is the game to do it in. So I think that USC will do their best to try and to give him touches, whether it's on sweeps, which we haven't really seen, or on screens, which we have, or even sending him downfield, which we definitely haven't seen, at least not successfully. So I'm inclined to say that he'll get at least 5 in this game, just because I think Lincoln Riley will have more designed plays for him that they've been holding back.
I would love to see that the Zachariah Branch offensive experiment has been held back to debut.
That would be lovely
in Big Ten play. I would like to see that. It still is weird to me that like his biggest offensive impact was the first game he's played against San Diego State, and we haven't seen him do any of those things since. Like SC was running the option with him, right? Like, where has that been?
Yeah.
And Miller Moss is probably not the guy you want running a lot of speed option, but I think you can do delayed pitches. You can run an option where takes a couple of steps, forces the end to get in a spot, Josiah Smith, force him to commit in one direction and then pitch it. Get him involved in fly sweeps, jet touch passes, all those kind of things. Absolutely. Let's go to the next one. Your last over under, which is what?
141.5, Miller Moss's passer rating. I discovered a stat that just speaks to how good Michigan's defense has been over the last few years. Quinn Ewers posted a 151.57 passer rating against Michigan, which I think we can both agree is good. That's a solid passer rating, but it's not like anything exceptional. Like, it's not off the charts. We've seen off the charts from a lot of different quarterbacks over the years. But that is the best passer rating that Michigan's defense has given up since they faced Mac Jones in the 2020 Citrus Bowl.
It's a long time.
It's a long time for nobody to get over 150 passer rating.
It's weird too, because like at this day in college football, is like this 141.5 line you made is essentially par.
Yeah.
Is that like,
yeah,
it's basically what par is in college football passer ratings. Like I would argue that it might be 150 is par now.
Yeah. I had it at 150 initially, and I was like, calm down, Alicia. Again, Quinn Ewers had the best passer rating that Michigan has given up in 4 years. So, it's hard to say. But last year, Kyle McCord for Ohio State was the only quarterback that played Michigan who had a passer rating that was better than 140. As you said, par, better than par. That's how good Michigan has been. against the pass, against everything, frankly, from the Michigan perspective. So, Miller Moss, we are used to Pac-12 offenses. We are used to quarterbacks with passer ratings up nearer to 180, pushing 200, in fact, of the super elite guys. Miller Moss had a passer rating of 172.37 against LSU. He had a relatively pedestrian 145.12 against Utah State that was definitely hurt by those drop touchdown passes. He gets a couple more touchdown passes, and it's probably closer to 170 again. So we know that Miller Moss in this offense can be an efficient thrower of the ball and put together a solid passer rating, which passer rating isn't everything, but it is indicative to me that your quarterback wasn't, completely just ineffective. So it's wild to me that quarterbacks have been generally more ineffective than not in every single game that Michigan has played over the last 4 years. But can Miller Moss do it? Can Lincoln Riley do it? That's the big question, because Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers were able to do it.
Yeah. One of the factors here is Will Johnson at corner. This is from, I don't know where the actual source is, but CFB rep on Twitter posted, Will Johnson hasn't allowed a single touchdown in 2 years.
Yeah.
415 coverage snaps, 0 touchdowns allowed. Yeah, that's one way to do it. And I think that, part of me is going to sit here and say, yeah, there haven't been a lot of, great performances, but, this is the Big Ten that has like Petrus and Kalamakis, or what, if I'm probably butchering that name because I don't have it in front of me right now. Like, those are the quarterbacks that are in the Big Ten. But Michigan had to play CJ Stroud every year for the last several years. And then last year, playing against Ohio State and McCord, I guess. But and McCord got 140 last year, like you said. So like that was on the higher end of those games. So
it was literally the highest end of those games.
Yeah. And Kyle McCord is not the Ohio State quarterback that you'd first think about having success. Yeah. Even though he's balling out over at the Qs.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over. Maybe it's bold. I think the passing game here is going to be conservative-ish, which maybe might breed a low answer, actually. But I'm going to say under, because passer rating has to do with yards per attempt, interceptions, touchdowns. Like those are the big factors to passer rating. I think Miller Moss can sort of manage the touchdown to interception ratio pretty decently because he's a good decision maker. The yards per attempt, I think, is going to be the question mark, because I think there's a way in which SC goes to the screen game or something, or just tries to be maybe more methodical. At the same time, look what SC did against LSU. They took shots downfield multiple times. They hit the past the Jacoby Lane on the free play downfield for a touchdown. So, yeah, I'm going to take the over only because 141 just seems low. Like we said, like that's basically par, and SC is sort of always over par on passer rating. Let's go to my last over under, which is over under 6.5 Michigan yards per pass attempt, right on cue. 6.5 yards per Michigan pass attempt. Michigan is only averaging 5.9 yards per pass attempt, which is not very good. It's like 104th in the country or something like that. Don't hold me on that. It's over 100. I looked it up. 4.5 yards per attempt against Fresno State in week 1. Yikes. 6.2 against Texas, 7.4 against Arkansas State. Got better there, but Davis Warren was the quarterback for a lot of those pass attempts. And he threw a lot of interceptions, and the passing game sputtered. It's hard to say that on one hand, you look at it and go, well, he's not the quarterback anymore, so like it's not necessarily fair to cite those statistics. On the other hand, the whole knock on Alex Orji is that he's an unproven passer. So, 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Last year, Michigan led the Big Ten, averaging 8.9 yards pass attempt per pass attempt, and that was with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. So 6.5 in this game, over under.
I I do not know what to think about this because I mean, we have not seen Alex Orji throw enough passes to know for sure what his passing range looks like in this game. My hope continues to be that USC will tackle as well as they've tackled in the first 2 games, and that could keep the pass yards per pass attempt low because the underneath throws that happen will get will get taken care of by defenders and not giving them a lot of yards after the catch.
Yeah.
So I'm going under, hopeful of an under, but it is so hard to gauge because we expect Michigan to go out and say we're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, and when you do that, one of the things that you try to do to catch the defense off guard is when the defense comes up, they stack the box.
Stack the box.
Then you try to hit them long. You try to hit them deep. You try to take advantage of them coming up, which is definitely something that can happen. You have one DB slips, and suddenly they have a 60-yard touchdown pass, and you're like, oh, okay, well, they've only attempted 10 passes this game, and one of them was for 60 yards, and you're already up close to 6. So, yeah, I'm going under, but it's going to be so fascinating to see what Michigan actually tries to do with Alex Orji from the passing perspective.
Yeah, you take the under, locks me into the over there. I don't want to sit here and say that Alex Orji can't throw the ball and all that stuff, because it's not that I don't think he can throw the ball. We just haven't seen it. It's more so like we haven't seen it, right? Like Lincoln Riley talked this week, like he recruited Alex Orji at one point. So it's not like he doesn't value what Alex Orji can bring to the game. And like Alex Orji can be dangerous and could potentially be more dangerous by having low expectations of what Michigan can do in the passing game.
Well, in this narrative that Orji can't pass, if USC's defenders believe it, and then don't have their heads in the game, that can backfire on you, especially because we've seen that what this USC defense did against LSU was play soft coverage. So there are gaps there that can be found if a quarterback can see them and then deliver the ball. And this is the uncertainty about Alex Orji. We knew that Garrett Nussmeier could make those throws. Nussmeier is a better passer than Orji. I can pretty much say that now, but how much better and where does Orji sort of sit is, I don't know. It's a great unknown.
Yeah, we will see. That's over under. Get your picks in. The link is in the show notes and the podcast description and the YouTube description, all that stuff. The link is over there. Click the link and make your picks for over under. Let's get to our predictions. Vegas spread, SC by 6 point spread, over under at 44.5. So that's do the math. 44.5 minus 6 is what, 38.5. Divide that by 2, 19 plus 6, 20, 25, 29, 20, 25, 19, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm going to trust your math.
That's what the Sharps are essentially projecting there. Bill Connolly's SP Plus projection is Michigan 30, SC 26. Again, disclaimer, that has a lot of impact from last year. So take that for what it's worth. Alicia, what's your score prediction?
I didn't realize this, but I'm going very close to what Vegas is predicting. Wow. I got USC 26 in a nod to Bill C's USC projection, which I trust more than his Michigan projection. And then Michigan 21, because I think that, please defense, please ease my anxieties. Prove to me that you can hold Michigan under 20 points. But I I suspect in the big house, there will be moments where stuff happens and Michigan will find ways to score, and USC is going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I was really struggling with this last week. I talked myself into 24-18. 24-16. I talked myself into 24-16. And I'm like, that just seems, it seems a little excessive. The line at 6 points just feels so big to me. I'm apprehensive to say that SC covers. So I'm going to say SC 20, Michigan 16. That Michigan 16 is a touchdown and 3 field goals. They have a very good kicker, Dominic Savannah. He was very good, transfer from Arkansas State. He made a 50-yarder last week. He's someone who has a lot of range. I think he can be reliable. 5 of 5 so far this year. He gives Michigan a chance to score from deeper. And I think that allows Michigan to maybe have more scoring drives than you would necessarily think because they're getting field goals. SC, in this sense, I think will still have to settle for a couple of field goals, but not as many. So 20-16 is my prediction there. Alicia, let's get to the mailbag. You ready?
Ready.
You've got mail.
All right, we got to start.
We should start with the super
chats.
The
super chats. Yeah. We got some super chats that we haven't got to. So big shout out to the super chats. West Texas Mike says $5 for a Michael Castillo on camera shimmy. To quote the great Harry Doyle, Michael doing his shimmy makes the women in Cleveland puke, presumably. I guess the women in Ann Arbor in this instance puke. What's a shimmy look like? Just a little.
I'm dance.
This is the closest thing I've ever been to like an OnlyFans model. Like, this is neat.
But yeah,
like
look
someone,
at you shimmy.
I know, like someone's paying me to do something.
Are you a cam girl now?
I am. I'm a cam boy. I'm a cam boy. Wow, look at me. The other super chat came from Tim in LA, who says $1 for each of the teams in the Big Ten. Yes, that's 18, but if the math doesn't have to make sense, then neither does mine. Big ups to Tim in LA. All right, those are the super chats. Let's get to some questions we got on Discord that meant to get to the other day, and then we'll go to everything else that's in the YouTube thingamabob. Samuel on Discord, late question. He says came in right before the last episode. If SC blows Michigan out, does it point more to USC being a strong team or more that Michigan is not a great team?
Both. Okay, so here's the thing. Michigan. I think Michigan is in danger of being like the Big Ten's Clemson, which is to say that like everyone agrees that Clemson sucks, except Clemson sucking is still like 9 or 10 wins level of suck. They're just not like they're just that team that's like not the what people want them to be in like the national conversation.
Sure, which I will say in a season after winning a national title. Totally okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Like
they've lost,
that's the perfect time to have it.
When you've lost like most of your the guys who led you to the national title, yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. But I say that because if USC blows Michigan out, it means that USC is a legitimate contender, mostly because they went into the Big House and they put up points on Michigan's defense, and the defense resolve my anxieties and prove that they could shut down a Michigan offense that I think they should be able to shut down. I think it also signals that Michigan is in that mid tier of the Big Ten this year, which again is not like that doesn't mean they're a bad team. This is still a roster that has a lot of talent.
Sure.
It's just not. This is not their year. This is the thing about college football. It's cyclical. Sometimes it's your year and sometimes it's not. And in very reasonable sense, this is not the year that Michigan is expected to do much of anything. So I think not to be a cop out, but it is both. It will it'll signal very well on USC's part. And it'll also signal that Michigan isn't in that upper, CFP seeking tier, which I don't think we expect that to be. But as Kenny said, they did what Texas did to them, and Texas is the number one team. I mean, yes, what Texas did to Michigan was very impressive for Texas. And if USC does anything similar, it will be just as impressive from a USC perspective. And I think we will see USC vault up in a lot of rankings. But at the same time, like, Texas has already done it. And so there will be people who devalue Michigan, but
there's a lot of things at play here, because you're exactly right on all points. Like, it is both. I do think there would be it would be fair to play comparative scores with Texas, because both those games are in Ann Arbor. They're 2 weeks apart. The only way it gets a little weird is one had Davis Warren as a starter, the other one would have Alex Orji as a starter. You can look into that kind of stuff, but like, I think it would say a lot about SC, because we haven't seen SC lay the wood on a team that is ranked and has value and has a great defense like Michigan has in a long time. And we haven't seen SC be the bully. They won the LSU game. They won the LSU game with the last few seconds of the game. And we all think that was a very impressive win, but it wasn't a dominant win. It wasn't a game where SC had it in hand the whole time or anything like that. If they were able to do that, I think you would feel a lot better about SC's chances going forward to be a legitimate Big Ten contender, for sure. It would validate what the Trojans have done in week 1 and 2, which I think you could argue is sort of the most important thing, right? Is to know that the D'Anton Lynn effect is real.
What a difference a defensive coordinator makes.
Validate D'Anton Lynn. Validate Miller Moss.
Yes. At the same time, if the game plays out just like the Texas game, let's just say it's identical, then I think that is the same thing happening to Michigan twice. And then it starts to say more about them at that point, and that their lack of offense. And then maybe Michigan is 20-23 Iowa at that point. And that's not a bad thing. That's going to win them a lot of games in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But it's not going to win you games necessarily against the teams that have offenses that'll be able to score and whatnot.
Yeah. But it does put USC in the tier, not in the exact tier, but like in the tier of a Texas level team, which Michigan would be proven to not be.
Yeah.
If USC ends up losing this game, which is not something we necessarily want to think about, but if USC ends up losing this game, then I think it says a lot about the strides that USC still needs to make, the growth that USC still needs to make.
Yeah.
And as Kenny says in the chat, like, it could be a sign that Michigan has found their answer.
Depends how it happens.
Depends how it happens. Yes, 100%.
If Alex Orji throws 250 yards and Michigan wins this game, sort of maybe what the SP Plus projection is, 30-26.
Yeah.
Where they score 30 points. Then it shows that the SC's defense still has room to grow.
Michigan's not dead yet.
Yeah.
And USC isn't ready yet.
I do think that SC, sort of the idea of the SC not being ready yet, like, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world from the SC perspective, in the sense, like, you always went into the season expecting the SC would probably not be 3-0, right? Like, LSU and Michigan on the schedule. I don't think that the expectations are damaged or anything like that. If you get absolutely blown out or something and have a bad performance, that's a different talking point. We'll talk about that when it happens. Let's go to a Discord message from Dan. Serious question for serious sports journalism. At what point in the college football Game of Thrones realignment, universities without football programs like UC San Diego and DePaul decide they can fill a major media market for a D1 conference? I think this is a very fascinating question.
It is. My first response to it, my first thought was, as much money as football makes, football is also a very expensive sport to put on, especially to do it from scratch.
There's a reason Fullerton and Long Beach don't have teams anymore.
It takes a lot to operate, and if you were to start up today, the operating costs would be even bigger than they ever were, because you're going to have to be accounting for giving players a piece of the pie.
Mhm.
And if you were to start up now, you're probably not turning a profit for at least a decade, I would guess.
Well, it depends on where you were able to do, like what is a school that he mentions DePaul here? Like, if DePaul started a school, are they going to get into like the American? I don't think so. I think
FBS. I don't know if that's it. Like, how do you start? Where do you start?
If DePaul was to start a team, they'd probably be at the FCS level, right? Like sort of like a Villanova, right? Like, I think that the more likely scenario is FCS teams
start coming up
more than they have, and ones that would have something to a reason to go up. Like Villanova, I think, is a prime example of a team that good FCS team, not great, but like they've been formidable. Matt Scherzer, famous Villanova Wildcat on the football gridiron, and Cubs World Series champ.
I think basketball schools, legitimate basketball powers that don't have football programs or don't have major football programs, but they're the ones that I could imagine being interesting because they already have brand power in athletics. But
yes, but to your point, like the operating costs of starting a program is so difficult, especially if you get to the FBS level. Which is the spirit of this question is like, because the money is at FBS, it's not at FCS. The big conference money, right? The big TV money is at the FBS level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to get into a revised Mountain West, or you're going to get into the MAC or the Sun Belt or something like that, I think the easiest way to do it is if you already have a team, because yes, having a football team helps support all the other sports, helps support a lot of the women's sports, a lot of the Olympic sports, throughout the athletic department, and that's great. That's a great thing to do. But like you said, it costs a lot to build the thing, and to go to FBS. I think you have to be averaging. I think it's 10,000 in attendance. Mm-hmm. You have to have a stadium that can hold like 15. Like there's like weird rules like that. Like,
here's my bigger question for any of these teams. Has Elon Musk decided that he wants to get into the sports space and is going to fund a football program the way that Phil Knight funds Oregon, or T. Boone Pickens would fund Oklahoma State? Like,
so it'd be poorly run though.
I mean, yeah, but like, just think of like, okay, Jeff Bezos has too much money and he doesn't know what to do with it. So he decides, hey, UC San Diego, I'm going to give you a boatload of money to start your football program. Then I could see that happening. But like, without a sugar daddy or a sugar mama, like I don't think this happens.
Yeah.
So do you have a very, very
Jeff
wealthy
Bezos
alumni?
went to Princeton. See, prime example.
Yeah,
like
Princeton,
it wouldn't happen to an Ivy League team, but like I think it again would make more viable sense if you were a if Princeton wasn't an Ivy, who Ivies always act the Ivy way. If they weren't an Ivy, then they would be a prime candidate for this. Close enough to major markets, and you bring them up, and pre-existing fan base, like that would work out, especially if Jeff Bezos is gonna bankroll.
Okay,
all
Gary E. Jacobs is a UC San Diego alumni.
We've gone off the rails.
He's a minority owner of the Sacramento Kings, so yeah, maybe he's interested. Robert J. Para is the founder. Para, it's P-E-R-A.
Oh.
Founder of Ubiquity Networks and an owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe he has some extra cash floating around. The founder of GoPro. Maybe GoPro wants Franklin Antonio, the founder of Qualcomm. Say they've got some deep pockets, theoretically.
The Toreadors?
Yeah.
And welcome back to Pac-12 After Dark for the 2029 season. We've got UC San Diego playing against the Seattle Pilots. Yeah. All right. Let's go to YouTube comments. We got a bunch of those. Angry Trojan, do you think Michigan will run 30 times in a row?
If they have success doing it, yes. It's up to USC to force them off the field so that they can't do that, and they have to pivot away. It could happen.
Yeah. Mark says Michigan has a 3 running back system. Do we hold them to 100 yards total? We in the over under. It was $1.50. You set the line, and I took the over. So I think Michigan's going to get their yards on the ground.
If USC holds them under 100, it's a USC win lock.
Yes, you would. It would be insane. Things probably would have happened at that point for SC to lose in that instance. Mari says, "Do you think there's a chance Caleb makes an appearance? Ann Arbor. It's about 4 hours from Indianapolis and 3 hours from Chicago."
I don't think there's any chance, and mainly that's because of the optics. The Bears' offense is not there, and I doubt that Caleb will take himself away from
There's nothing I want to unsubscribe more. Political ads, number 1. Number 2, I want to unsubscribe from Caleb Williams takes. I can't do it. Like the thing about him going viral for the mic'd up talk to CJ Stroud, like what? Oh, his attitude is so bad. Like, what are we talking? What are we doing here? So yes, I agree with you. I think that like that would be fodder for like all the people who are looking for reasons to bag on Caleb Williams. Give them a lot of ammo. Yeah. Cam says, Michael, have you been to the big house? Alicia, we're gonna throw a little picture up, and it didn't prep for this. We got this question on YouTube, and I'm like scrambling while Alicia is talking, finding the picture and uploading the picture. So here we go. We're just gonna throw it up on YouTube here. There we go.
Yeah. Has he been to the big house?
Yeah, I've been to Ann Arbor, baby.
He has not been to a game in Ann Arbor, though.
No,
he's gone in front of it and taken a picture.
Yeah,
with his Michigan hat.
I should have photoshopped it out.
I mean, there is a Michigan hat in this studio somewhere. That's
his. A comfortable ass hat.
Yeah.
I bag on Adidas, but that Adidas flex fit hat, so insanely comfortable. It's so good. It's so.
We also have a photo somewhere around here from like a photo album with you rocking Michigan stuff, like at a USC event or something like that. I don't understand what you were doing when you were a kid, but
it's not a USC event. It was like the 1995 Holiday Bowl.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever it was, it was in a folder.
So
of USC
my dad likes Michigan.
Yeah,
he's not a Michigan fan per se,
but he likes Michigan.
He likes Michigan.
Yeah.
And one of the my dad's an SC season ticket holder, so don't get it twisted that way. But first of all, my dad likes Michigan for one of the craziest reasons. He likes Michigan because he liked Woody Hayes as a kid, and to get back at Ohio State for firing Woody Hayes, he decided he'd like Michigan.
I love your dad.
Anyways, so as a kid, we watched Michigan was on. We have the game on, and I liked Michigan for that reason. As a kid, like. The helmets, awesome. The uniforms, awesome. It's the best fight song in the history of sports, like bar none. Like nothing goes harder.
I gotta give it to Michigan.
The Victors is incredible. Like last year, Michigan was very annoying last year. They were annoying on I have no beef with the Michigan fan base. There's a lot of great Michigan fans. There's a million of them, like great fans, all that stuff. The discourse around Michigan football last year was annoying, given all the Connor Stallion stuff. I didn't want them to win the national championship just because of all that BS, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it was annoying. And yet here, they score a touchdown in the Rose Bowl against Alabama, and I'm watching it on TV, and I can't help but, hail to Michigan, the strong and the... Like, you can't help it. It's a good-ass song.
Yeah, it's
a bop. It's a bop. Yeah. All right. Let's go to.
We're gonna have unsubscribers up the wazoo.
I know they're all leaving. Yeah. They're all leaving. Angry Trojan says blasphemy in all caps.
If you hate the fact that Michael has a Michigan hat and loves "Hail to the Victors," go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button.
Yeah, if you hit the like button, that
shows that is your shame. If you want to give Michael a shame, hit the like button. And for every like that this video gets, that will be the number of shames that I will speak to this man.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go to a comment on YouTube from the Angry Trojan. Josh and Buckeye Country. Do you think Colin Cowherd actually does research before having a segment? He interviewed Lincoln Riley today and told Lincoln Riley to bring a hoodie, but it's going to be 85 degrees in Ann Arbor on Saturday. I will say.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you speak and then I'll speak.
I think he might not do a lot of research because he might have PAs that do research for him. But with the weather thing, I don't think anyone looks up weather. Right?
But in September, it's not
I think when people talk about weather, unless they're talking about their city's weather,
yeah,
I think we're just gonna sit there and just pull something out of our ass. It's February in Chicago. It's cold, right? It's cold.
Yeah.
My head says cold. I can understand that, the idea of Ann Arbor will be chilly, but it's also ridiculous because it's September 21st. What is chilly in Ann Arbor on September 21st? 63? 63 is normal LA
I'd wear a hoodie.
Weather.
Yeah.
So
certainly compared to LA where we're heading for another heat wave. Annoyingly timed.
This is the other thing is to bring a hoodie. Hoodie weather for me, 73 and below.
Yeah.
73 and below. This is part of it because I grew up in the South Bay.
Yeah, where it's always cold.
Where it was always, the temperature was always between 62 and 77. This is a 15-degree window.
This is what I've had to learn being married to this man whose family is in the South Bay. As a Valley girl who never really had reason to go to the South Bay. No matter what the weather is here at home, I always
15 to 20 degrees
always
cooler.
Bring a sweater if we're going down to visit his family. Every single time. It could be 115 in the Valley and I'm still bringing a sweater because frickin' South Bay.
It's perfect, baby.
It's freezing.
It's the best place in the world.
Yeah.
Best place in the world.
Okay, I have thoughts on Colin Cowherd. I think that Colin Cowherd and a lot of the other take merchants, it gets annoying when they sort of die on hills that they don't need to die on and all that kind of stuff. But in this particular case, as somebody who has a job, whose job it is to cover national sports in a very wide variety of sports, you can't possibly be on top of every detail about every game in every league and not it is impossible to be on top of all of those details.
It's also hard to be on live TV.
You're on live TV for three or 4 hours a day, doing interviews with a million different people, doing commentary on a million different things. And so while, USC fans or, Dodger fans or Charger fans, Rams fans, whoever, whatever, Raiders fans, when you are a fan and that is the thing that is your thing, you live it, you breathe it, you know every detail there is. When you are covering things on a national level, which is something I've had to transition to, you have to learn everything about everything on a surface level because that's literally, you don't have time or bandwidth to do anything deeper than a surface level most of the time because you're spread too thin. So in this particular case, this one, it's just he spread too thin. He did not look up the weather in Ann Arbor because he has a million other things that he's juggling, and the weather in Ann Arbor is not important to him.
I'd also not to let Colin Cowherd's takes off the hook or even Paul Feinbaum's takes off the hook
Yeah.
or whatever. But I think that it's hard being a generalist for all the things that you said, because you got to be on top of a million things. It's hard enough for us to like prep and stuff for a podcast for SC and then an opponent every week, right? Like, it's hard enough to know all the things. And with live TV, doing live podcasts now, trust me, we say a million dumb things, and then my anxiety like for the next 2 days is like, I can't believe I said this. Someone's going to comment on it.
You say something, and then immediately you think to yourself, like, that was wrong. That was dumb.
That
like,
was
what?
Yeah, I need to correct it. But then the conversation has gone somewhere else, so you can't even go back to it.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to point up to it. Jesus,
up.
I need to update up my Prozac. Anyways, Kenny in the chat says hoodie weather in LA is below 60. I am wearing a hoodie. I'm wearing a hoodie right now, and it is 67 degrees outside. Like I said, anything below 73 for me is like, I can get away with it now. I can get away with it.
If I see anything under 65, I'm got my hoodie.
All right, more questions from the YouTube chats. Steven says, when is Jesse leading the boys out of the tunnel? That would be cool.
When USC gives us a call, we will arrange that.
Yeah.
Although I cannot imagine an environment that would unsettle that dog more than being in the Coliseum with all that noise and all that crowd and all those people.
She would just cower behind us.
Like, what the F is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron Murray says that Lincoln Riley used 2 tight ends to help block Michigan's D line, or let the O line handle it on their own. If SC wins, do we have a clear path to the college football playoffs?
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me?
We saw USC use 2 tight end sets in both of the previous 2 games to great effect. I expect that to continue. I expect USC to lean heavily on the tight ends as blockers in the run game and as blockers in the pass game. Although they will obviously want to sneak Lake McCree out to be a safety valve for Miller Moss as often as possible.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to probably be looking at some max protect situations. So yes.
Yeah, I think 12 personnel will be a thing. Absolutely. Will it be a lot? Maybe not. But I think it'll be have a role there. I also would expect some 2-back sets, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I think
we'll see how that goes. If SC wins, does SC have a clear path to the playoff? On one hand, yeah, because if SC wins, SC is a 6-point favorite against the defending national champion on the road in their first ever Big Ten game. If they win that, then there is not a single game on the rest of the schedule in which SC will not be favored. So from that perspective, yeah, there's a path. Like there's a path.
If USC beats Michigan, their next hardest game is their next hardest game is Penn State. That's at home.
Mm-hmm.
Their next hardest game after that is Nebraska. That's at home. And their next hardest game after that is Notre Dame. That's at home.
Yeah.
It's
going to be avoiding the slip ups.
Yes.
Obviously winning the big games at home, but avoiding the slip ups in Minnesota and Maryland
and Washington.
And Washington.
Yeah. At that point, USC will have a path to the playoff, short of USC losing its concentration.
Yeah.
And you can never.
A Pac-12 team will always Pac-12.
There was the running joke about Pete Carroll and the Pac-12 road opener. It was just like clockwork every time. Pete Carroll teams, and we all agree, Pete Carroll, one of the greatest coaches that's ever lived in college football. He always had that game, and we always knew it was coming. So, you certainly shouldn't expect USC to go undefeated, because it's very hard to go undefeated. But USC will absolutely be in the driver's seat, especially because USC can get into the playoff very easily with 1 loss and quite easily with 2 losses, depending on how those 2 losses come. So the margin for error that USC has suddenly gets huge, because they can have one of those throwaway losses, and it is literally a throwaway loss that does not matter.
Yeah. And also remember, Notre Dame, famously not a Big Ten team.
Yes.
And so if SC were to lose that game, it would not affect SC's ability to get to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. West Texas Mike says, was that Alicia's voice multiplied? Is he talking about this?
Yes.
Stack the box.
So it's funny because
Stack the box.
your voice is the one that stands out the most to me there.
It's same, but it's probably because it's a higher register than,
Yeah, a little inside baseball. We had a bunch of friends call in. So Kenny's in there. Our friend Matthew is in there. Alicia, you are in there a couple of times. I'm in there a couple of times. Yeah.
Stack the box.
See, I can hear Kenny. If I listen very closely, I can hear Kenny's. I can't really hear you though.
Because
I think you and Matthew are probably blending them together a little bit.
The best way to do it was to alter the gain for each one. So they're not all the same level, because then it sounds too muddy and too monotonous, and it doesn't sound as good. So I think you are technically louder than a lot of the other ones, which is why we hear you so clearly. But yeah, it was this is what recording that was like. Stack the box. Stack the box. Stack the box.
Yeah.
Stack the box. You just change your voice a bunch of times.
5 times. Yeah.
And then you suddenly have 15 voices that you can put together. All right. HR picking stuff. That LSU kicker can tackle. He robbed Zachariah Branch. Who's the best tackling kicker of all time? There's only one answer. It's Louis Aguiar from Kansas City. Or as my dad said when I was a kid, he's the only kicker with balls.
Yeah. Who was that kicker that had the linebacker pad, the neck pads?
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about David Beeler?
Yes, David Beeler. I mean, that's what I remember, but I don't. Yeah.
David Beeler, interestingly enough, he's the only SC kicker that's ever sort of made it in the pros in my lifetime. Right? Because he was with the Cowboys for a few years. And he was a convert. Do you remember when he hit that 50-yarder against Cal? And it's
Dang.
It was one of his early kicks, because he had a mountain of a leg, right? Accuracy was always a question, but mountain of a leg, and he hits that kick in it was foggy, a little bit at the Coliseum. Yeah, and he's just got the huge shoulder pads.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. Back in the aughts, even though it was he was dressed like a mid-90s Penn State linebacker. Yeah. Kenny says SC hasn't won a true ranked game on the road since 2016. That was at Washington, and hasn't won in the Central or Eastern time zone since 2012. That was at Syracuse at MetLife. Does the travel/road environment impact your thoughts at all?
Yeah. It's why I would like to be more confident about the outcome of this game, but the reality is that there are still things that USC has not proven, and because they have not had the chance to prove yet. So I'm not saying that they've disproven that they are ready for this moment, but we don't know if they are ready for this moment. They were ready for Vegas and LSU, and that was very impressive. That doesn't mean that they're ready for Michigan and a home crowd instead of just a neutral site crowd that was heavily weighted towards one side. It's different. This is a different kind of offense that they're facing. This is a different defense. Everything about this game is just another test that will or won't prove that USC is on a path to something. And this is what I want to caution people about, because the downside of expectation is that if something goes wrong with this one, if USC loses, then all of a sudden the negativity creeps back in and everybody's doom and gloom and woe is us and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to again reiterate that I think there are many, many scenarios where USC comes into this game and doesn't come out with a win. But again, like Michael and I have been talking about all season, right now, the phase that the program is in, the eye test is what's more important, and seeing growth in certain areas is what's more important. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world if USC loses this game. It's not the end of seeking the playoff berth by any means. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, we want to see USC win this game. We want to come on to a really excited CarCast and have a lot of fun with y'all. But the reality is that this is a test that USC has not, like Kenny pointed out, this is a test that USC has not passed
in a while. Yeah,
in almost a decade, over a decade, or no, almost a decade. Yeah, and
even when you think of like the ranked teams SC has faced, they didn't threaten Oregon last year.
Notre Dame them around.
Well, was Utah ranked in 2022? Does that count?
I would wager so.
I think so. Obviously, we know that was a game that SC lost by a single point.
Yeah.
The 2019 Notre Dame game, which the one that I always rave about, Keaton Slovis's performance, is probably the only one where I think that like SC played sort of valiantly.
Yeah.
In other than the Utah game in 2022. So, yeah, I'm more worried about the travel than the environment. Not to take anything away from Michigan, but like I just think that like the week 1 environment against LSU was just so raucous and sort of unexpectedly raucous for a neutral site game. That I think that is sort of battle tested SC a little bit in that sense, but the travel to Vegas is not the travel to Ann Arbor. So we're going to have to see. And you talk about the Notre Dame games, SC hasn't played well at Notre Dame often lately. So the 2019 game, sort of the only one, and that they, performed admirably. And that game was one that they still lost. All right. Tony says, what's the over under on Michigan rushing attempts? 45 to 50 question mark. I think 45 would be not a bad over under for that.
Oh, I'd probably guess more like 35 as like setting an over under.
You think so? Have you looked at they ran 44 times last week.
Yeah, but that was a game that they were ahead in and trying to kill a clock.
Sure. At Maryland last year, they only won by 7. They ran 45 times. I think there would be a lot of run. Yeah, okay, maybe 40 is.
Yeah, maybe 40 because there's a lot of 30-ishes in this run.
Sure. Okay, last couple questions. War Room says, do you feel Michigan's agenda is to manage time of possession and limit SC from scoring? Yeah, exactly. I think that they're going to want to crockpot SC in that sense.
Yeah,
slow things down.
Michigan wants to run the ball and keep USC's offense off of the field as long as possible.
Yeah, and War Room also says, and on defense, is Michigan going to blitz in all formations to rattle Moss? Yeah, Michigan has been Wink Martindale loves to blitz. So I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on. How can Miller Moss sort of manage the blitz coming at them that way? All right, one more question we got. This is from the Awesome Tier on Discord. How do we feel about Sam Darnold and Caleb Williams' NFL showing this season? I think we talked about this on Monday a little bit. Sam Darnold's the Sam Darnold sans was our friend Nick Shook the one who said Darnold sans? Did somebody else coin that?
I don't know.
Somebody.
I know Shook said it or like texted it, but
yeah,
that might be
that has been that is a great thing to see for him, and it's early for Caleb, and hopefully the Bears start to protect him.
Proof that quarterbacks, their performance is heavily weighted towards situation. Yeah. The Vikings and Kevin O'Connell has consistently produced a solid offense the whole time. Even when Kirk Cousins got injured, they were able to bring in Josh Dobbs, and he was able to have a few really solid weeks. It's just proof that you create a platform upon which a quarterback can succeed or fail. And you look at teams like the Jets and the Panthers, and the Browns, there's a consistency of quarterback failure.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that quarterbacks who end up with the Vikings recently, or the Rams, or the 49ers? Why is it that they're able to all, do relatively okay and not be a dumpster fire? Why is it that Geno Smith went from the Jets to the Seahawks and looks like a fully capable, middling but still capable NFL quarterback? It's because situation matters, and Sam Darnold finds himself in a really solid situation. He was always a good quarterback. Mark Sanchez was a good quarterback. A lot of good quarterbacks have gotten ruined in the NFL, and we're seeing that with Bryce Young, and we've seen that with a lot of other guys. With Caleb Williams, he's in a good situation in that he has a defense, which certainly is new for him, and he has some good weapons in the passing attack and in the running game, but that offensive line, no quarterback, there is not a single quarterback in the NFL who would have succeeded with the offensive line performing like they did in that game, in that Sunday Night Football game. So, Caleb is going to have my big prayer for Caleb is just that he doesn't end up ruined by the offensive line issues before they get sorted out.
Yeah, and I hate saying this because I think it's just too early to say this, but like the Bears' history is so horrendous. Like I just pulled up the thing. Like Jay Cutler threw 154 touchdowns with the Bears.
He's their best quarterback in the history of the franchise.
Well, Sid Luckman is.
Well, yes,
but Sid Luckman was playing in the 40s.
Yeah, you have to go back to the 40s.
And yes, and you know who's third? A guy named Billy Wade in the 60s threw 68 touchdowns. Yeah. In 59 games. So yeah, it's not great. It's not great. All right. We'll be back Saturday afternoon, probably about 4:00 or so. After the game, USC and Michigan locking horns at the Coliseum at the Big House.
Yeah.
Not the Coliseum. 12:30 Pacific time on CBS. And we'll be back after the game with that CarCast live here on YouTube. Be sure to make your picks, your over-under picks. Hit the link below and call into the Rant Line, 818-643-7227. Until next time, we will see you.
See ya.
See ya.